Oh, and here comes Steve, right on time. How precise. And everybody appears to be in.
Okay, then good morning, everybody. And Mary Antonotti is also joining us as a guest speaker today for those who didn't notice her on the screen. So let's get started with my agenda, the agenda for the MSRAC meeting. First item is we'll call the meeting to order. The second item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the August 7th, 2020 special meeting. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes.
Okay, so Charlene made the motion. Do we have a second?
Joanne will.
Okay, Joanne seconds. Is there any further discussion on the minutes? All in favor of approving the August 7th, 2020 special meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Correspondence, item 3, we have none. Item 4, citizens' comments. Wayne's not on yet, right?
No, I don't believe he is.
Okay,
I did
No,
tell
I
him.
don't see a new phone come in yet.
okay. Then we'll just keep going along the regular agenda because I think, we have items called other committee business that we can, move to the top of the list at any time, I think. So on the MSRAC agenda.
Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. It's finally working. Sorry.
Okay, I thought I heard you approve the last minutes. Maybe
Oh,
not.
no one, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, it's working. No, I thought no one heard me when I was talking. Sorry.
You were muted for a minute there, Bernie. 2 people on phone numbers without names just came in. Is one of them Wayne?
One of them is, yes. Hi.
Which one are you, Wayne? What's your last 4 digits?
What is my 0195?
Okay, I'm just going to rename you here
All right.
so we can.
You should have me, Tara.
That's you, Ken? Okay, I was wondering.
Yeah, I'm going to put myself on mute anyway and listen.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So members, what I'd like to do is Marianne and Wayne would like to speak with us about the Eastern Connecticut Land Bank. I think we can easily add that to our item entitled Other Committee Business under the BAR agenda. So why don't we just keep moving through the first agenda, which is the MSRAC agenda, until we get to that. So now we're up to item 4 on the MSRAC agenda, citizens' comments.
Ken, that would be you if you have anything to say.
There's also citizens' comments on our next agenda as well.
Yeah, I think on your citizens' comments, part of it's part of the fence, and we all drive by that on a regular basis down at buildings, and obviously it's not being worked on by any means. It's been down in that same position for a long time. So I don't know what the holdup is with Sean. That's it.
Well, I don't think it's going too far out of bounds to say I just don't think they care or have any interest in repairing that fence. I think that they are ignoring that property completely.
I would agree.
I would agree with that.
Is there anything anybody can do about it, or we just keep talking about it every meeting and say how it's that no one's paying attention, no one's, like, is that what we just do every month?
Well, it is something we've talked about. I mean, the town does have some leverage, which is that they owe us a bunch of taxes. But what we keep saying is we don't want to rock that boat until the 929 affair is sufficiently wrapped up that it won't have any negative consequences. I really think that's the only thing holding
So
us
once
back.
the road is,
And-
Other than appearance, once the road change is made, the Blaine Road intersection. It won't have the feel of being in your face the way it is now.
That's right.
Well, maybe we could just take it off the minutes then and let's not talk about it because it's pretty frustrating.
I think I will take it off the agenda for the mill meeting, but I'll kind of continue it at least in the back of our mind for the Blaine Road intersection design update, because
Okay.
when the town Public Works Department actually goes to construct those intersection changes, they can and should absolutely remove any dangerous, unsightly debris within the town right-of-way, which includes that fence. And they'll be right there and they'll be working on that intersection. And they should be able to evaluate if, any dangerous situations would result that guide rail should be put there instead of the fence. But I really feel that that's an opportune time. That's my feeling.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and Rich did give us an update. He had hoped to get to that we're out of order on the agenda, but it's still topical. He had hoped to get to that this fall initially, but he's now saying it's going to be their first project for spring construction season.
Does that sound better, Charlene?
Perfect.
Okay. Then item B, blight ordinance.
The ordinance committee had a meeting yesterday. Joanne, you should probably cover that since you're actually on the committee.
We had a pretty intensive discussion regarding this yesterday, and we've decided to table the final draft and, send the final draft forward and just table anything that can be done until we can all have a public meeting with real people at a real town meeting. So it's kind of tabled for now. That's it.
Okay.
Not much to
Does anybody else have anything else to add? Charlene, you look like you have some thoughts. You're the only one I can see.
Well, just to add to what Joanne said, I mean, they did vote to approve the draft itself. So the writing of it is complete. The Board of Selectmen can decide to do whatever they want. The ordinance committee, which, as was pointed out in their meeting, is advisory, has recommended not taking further action on it until live town meetings are possible. I believe that is discretionary for the Board of Selectmen. Ken, maybe you can confirm or deny that.
Want to repeat that, if you would? I guess just
So
some
what-
bits and pieces.
Yeah, that's okay. What they voted on was to approve the draft itself to move forward in the process. In other words, to send it to the Board of Selectmen. But they've recommended tabling any action, in other words, bringing it to vote until such time as a live town meeting is possible. But as Al himself pointed out in that meeting, their role is advisory, so I think it's still discretionary for the Board of Selectmen whether they want to actually move the presenting it at town meeting up or not, whether it's live or not. Maybe I misunderstand that, and maybe Joanne or Ken can correct me there, but that was the impression that I got in that discussion.
No, you're right. That's exactly what we thought was going to happen.
Is there a copy of can we see and was this just for the mains part, or was this a blight ordinance across the whole town?
It's an ordinance, so it applies to the town. I have it and can forward it to anybody.
Yeah, could I take
All
a
right,
look
I
at
guess.
it?
Yeah,
All right,
absolutely.
the Board of Selectmen have not seen this yet. Just to let you know. It has not been on any of our agendas by any means to have any discussion.
Okay.
So technically, the board is unaware that the ordinance committee is even working on the blight ordinance.
Well, the board may be unaware, but the first selectman is certainly aware because she's been at least 2 of the meetings.
That should be a topic of discussion, that this is being entertained, and that the Board of Selectmen should be aware of it, so that way we can have some input or thoughts or discussion, even as an agenda item while the ordinance committee is working on it. But that has not happened as of yet.
Really?
I just emailed that to all of you.
Is there a way that, I know I was reading the POCD and the intern we had asked him, like, what were the pros about working in the town and what was some of the downfalls working in the town? And obviously this person, the one that was the intern, sees things very much the same as I'm sitting here listening to a conversation, that there's no continuity in that town hall. If there's a selectman or 3 of them, I certainly would hope that all 3 of them are on the same page. And then as a citizen or people on committees, if I'm finding that not to be true, I would certainly hope that we would figure out and fix the problem. Because if this is falling through because somebody's not aware or they don't know what's even happening, I'm not sure how anything can go forward. And we're expecting outcomes to have our town grow when we can't even talk and communicate inside the town hall. So it's very frustrating to be sitting on a committee listening to this committee and other committees here that, well, I don't know anything about that. This is the first I hear of it. We're going to table it. We're not going to do anything. What are we doing?
In this particular instance, listening to Charlene's and Ken's comments, would it be appropriate, Tier? I don't know who should do this. I don't know if there's a chairperson of the ordinance committee, but should staff or the chairperson of the ordinance committee forward a copy of the draft blight ordinance to the selectmen and ask to be placed for discussion on an agenda item?
Well, she has the draft. In fact, because she's on the MSRAC chain, she just received in the same email as the rest of you the most updated copy. In fairness, the ordinance committee just voted yesterday to officially, approve it. So the form that would be discussed was only established yesterday, and the first selectman is on vacation. So that in this specific instance, the communication chain is not particularly slow, specific to between yesterday and today. Obviously, both Ken and Amy are separately aware that the blight ordinance has been worked on. I don't know what happens to those meeting minutes after they are taken and recorded, other than being uploaded to the website. If they need to be forwarded to Amy, then I think, yes, that is something that needs to happen.
Yeah, well, specifically
Tara?
to be
Can I
asked to put on
interject?
the agenda. Sorry.
I was at the meeting yesterday, and I was under the impression that, yes, Donna was supposed to be forwarding the latest draft, or someone. I didn't think it was you.
Well,
Sarah.
that would make sense. That would make sense to me, Joanne. I couldn't I couldn't speak conclusively because I don't remember that being discussed. It might have been after I left the meeting to correct the draft.
Well, no, and I think that's the chain of events that should happen. Since we made the final approval yesterday, then Donna would have to forward it to the Board of Selectmen. So that's what our goal was yesterday, to make the final to approve the final draft, and then to forward it, and then to get this moving. As you know, we all want this thing to go forward, but we needed the Board of Selectmen to approve it. So now that Ken's aware of it, and hopefully he'll get a copy of the final draft, and it can get on the agenda for the next meeting.
Personally, I think we're pounding sand with all this. I don't see any communication issues in the town hall. I'm not there as much as maybe some others. But I think Ken's point wasn't that the Board of Selectmen, individual people didn't know about this. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ken, but I think your point was nothing official has come to the Board of Selectmen because it wasn't due to come onto a Board of Selectmen agenda yet. I think you were saying that I think everyone knows about it. It's just not at the point where it needs, where it's, or maybe it is now, but it hasn't been on the point to which it would go on the Board of Selectmen agenda. And Charlene, I think perhaps you misinterpreted that as no one knew about it, as versus not being ready to go on the agenda.
Bernie, normally when we send things to the ordinance committee, it is usually the consensus of the selectmen to send these things to be worked on. It's the way it's always been in the past, even when you guys rewrote that, when they rewrote them back in, I don't know, the major rewrite, which was about 2011 and took a while. But it's always, you know, these are the things that we want worked on. These are the things that are an issue, and it did not come in front of the Board of Selectmen for consensus to send it to the Ordinance Committee. There could have been a flat-out, you know, discussion with the Board of Selectmen that, you know, we may not even be in favor of sending it because of, you know, how it went down back in 13. But we didn't even have that discussion to, you know, to reopen that, and that's should have happened on a regular Board of Selectmen agenda before being sent to the Ordinance Committee.
Yeah, so that's on me, Ken, because the whole reason that this went forward at all is because I walked through an ordinance committee meeting one morning and made an offhand comment about the blight ordinance, which resulted in a brief discussion. And then I said, well, I'll just go into my office and work on one. So this is not, this is how it transpired. So that's on me. That's not on anybody else.
Well, but even at that, once that is happening and, you know, Amy was aware of it, it should have been made a point of being on the Board of Selectmen's agenda that we are pursuing this. And that has not happened as of yet.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's part of the communication. You know, it could have been very easily just say, do it and we'll see what comes of it, you know, and work with it. But nobody knows at this point as far as, you know, anyway, we'll let it go with that. But the communications have broken down.
Okay, well, I think we're digressing from the mill meeting. So I guess the selectmen and the ordinance committee need to work some of these issues out. Can we move along to item 6, member comments? Okay, hearing none, we will adjourn the regular meeting of the MSRAC committee, and we will call to order the regular meeting of the BAR grant subcommittee. The first item on the agenda is approval of minutes of the August 7th, 2020 special meeting. Is there a motion?
At the gazebo?
Yes.
Yeah, so moved then.
Second.
Okay, so Bernie moved to approve and Steve seconded. Under discussion, I think I have one correction under the discussion of It's on the second sheet, and it says Tira Penn suggests adding an intersection from the east side of Riverside. And I believe that should be adding a crosswalk from the east side of Riverside. That's under the item where we're discussing a crosswalk at Blaine Road.
Gotcha.
Right. Yeah.
Are there any other comments?
Motion amended with correction.
Do you second that as well, Steve?
Yes, yes, sorry.
Any further comments or corrections? Then can we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
Mhm.
You mean a vote?
Yes. Sorry, looking at too much paperwork. Can we have a vote, please?
Aye.
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 Okay, the minutes are approved. Okay, item 3, correspondence, basically is some email updates, so I thought we could discuss those under committee business. And under committee business, well, let's just do 4 citizens' comments.
Hmm. I don't hear any citizens.
Under 5 committee business, I'd like to entertain a motion of moving F, other committee business, to the top so that Wayne and Mary Ann can speak to us under that agenda item about the Eastern Connecticut Land Bank, and they don't have to necessarily stay on the line for all the other agenda items.
I'll make a motion to move that forward.
I'll second that. Again.
Okay, so can we have a vote on that? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, then let's talk about that now. We're under item 5, committee business, other committee business, Eastern Connecticut Land Bank.
Good morning, Mary Ann Chinati. Thank you so much for adding us to the agenda. The Eastern Connecticut Land Bank has been in the works for almost 2 years now, and we finally got our final accreditation from the state of Connecticut DECD. So we're formally a brownfield land bank according to state requirements, which is quite exciting. The eastern side of the state, east of the Connecticut River, we have many, many brownfields, over 1,000, and we have our own particular issues, and we need attention. And it was really surprising to find that there was no land bank on this side of the river, though there are 3 west of the Connecticut River. So we pulled together municipal officials, environmental professionals, engineers, etc., to come together and create this land bank. So now we are, though in our infancy, the goal is to assist municipalities and developers to clean up, repurpose the brownfields in their towns, to bring them back to productive use. So it's really exciting, and we're working right now with Yukon Connecticut Brownfield Initiative on an EPA grant for a community-wide brownfield assessment grant. We have not focused on locations yet, but that also is a project that we're working on. We will be applying for a DECD brownfield grant as well. Being a 501c3, that allows us to take properties that to assume ownership of properties that municipalities may be leery of taking because they don't want to, which is understandable, assume the environmental liabilities associated with those properties. So the land bank now can step in and actually take ownership of those properties and leave the town out of the chain of title while the property's getting repurposed and cleaned up and redeveloped. Wayne, do you want to jump in?
Sure, and thanks for having us. I hope everybody can hear me okay. I'm on the road, and I apologize. I may lose you again. I've already lost the signal once, but can everybody hear me all right?
Yes.
So far, so good, Wayne.
Okay, great, thanks. I think, in past meetings of MSRAC, I think that the concept of land bank has come up many times. Does anybody need like an intro to what a land bank is and what it does? Would it be helpful?
Sure.
Okay, just kind of in a nutshell, so a land bank is, in Connecticut anyway, it's a nonprofit corporation. In most parts of the country, land banks are quasi-governmental organizations. They're usually attached in some way to economic development agencies or other entities within city or county governments. And the purpose of them is to basically acquire and manage and clean up properties and put them back on the tax rolls. They're not a land, they're not a land trust. The goal is never to own these properties for long periods of time. The goal is to put them back in private ownership and have them earning taxes again. Connecticut is a little different than most states, where the land banks are mostly focused on residential properties. The law that allowed us to form the Eastern Connecticut Land Bank was specific to brownfields. So it was, so that was the focus was really sites like the River Mill or the 630. These are sites that made, obviously had Mary Ann and I very interested in forming a land bank so that properties like those would not have to be potentially sold at auction, sold at a tax, the tax lien sold off to speculators who don't take care of the properties, and also not have the town have to take title to the property. The way the law reads in Connecticut is these are nonprofit corporations that are set up, which means that we can go after philanthropic gifts, we can go after grants that are that other entities, private entities wouldn't be able to go after. And we have a lot of tools in the toolbox that allow us to act on behalf of municipalities to assess and clean up these properties. So that's kind of in a nutshell what the goal, or how these things are structured and what our objectives would be. And as Mary Ann said, there are a lot of brownfields in Eastern Connecticut and across the whole state. And so our goal is to, obtain funding from a variety of sources so that we can basically run a business that the whole purpose of the business is to take the pressure off of towns so that these derelict properties can, have another life and avoid the uncomfortable situation where towns don't want to take properties, don't want to have them, don't want to be in the chain of title. So it's a real powerful set of rules. There are a lot of changes that are probably going to be made to make them even better over time, but the law went into effect in 2017, and right now I think there are 4 land banks in Connecticut, and we are basically taking all of Eastern Connecticut as kind of our territory, and hope to get a lot of support from municipal leaders and from private businesses and that sort of thing. So am I still on? Everybody still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, that's, Mary Ann, you probably want to tell us a little bit more about the organization, like who's involved.
Well, actually, our board of directors consists of a president, vice president, secretary, and we are lacking a treasurer at the moment, as well as we also have, the directors are also from, for example, Tira's on the board of directors, Town of Killingly, Mary Calorio. From Putnam is Del Faveri. I'm the president. Wayne is the vice president. Daniel Blanchette is the secretary. And we are lacking a treasurer, so if anybody knows of anyone interested in being a treasurer that is experienced in that type of thing, please let us know. Tim Myjack is also on the board of directors. He's an engineer, an LEP. Wayne, I know, oh, and Renee Trieber from the Connecticut Preservation. And Wayne, who am I missing?
Well, Rich Roberts is,
Rich Roberts is our pro bono attorney for now. We will need to be looking for an attorney. And we're also going to need to hire on an accountant as well as, you know, a formal attorney. And eventually we will be at the point where we're going to need, and actually Wayne and I really were discussing this a bit ago, almost to the point where we're going to need to start looking for an executive director, a paid position. We're pretty much paddling the canoe, so to speak, but we really are starting to get quite busy, and an executive director would be able to take on a lot of the work that we're doing.
Do you have any funding sources?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that funding is a huge, the most fundamental question for us is how are we going to have a steady revenue supply that can pay for the staff members that we are going to need to hire, because we're going to be a very busy a corporation very soon, and grants allow very limited amounts of state and federal grants only allow a very limited amount to be directed toward operational costs, virtually almost nothing. So our operational costs are not going to be grant funded per se, not through brownfield, but we are going to be looking for grant money from foundations and from the state and from the federal government. The other way that we're going to be funding this, obviously, is if we take title to property and clean it up using grant money or loan money, that we would like to flip these properties and realize some revenue streams that way, and that will pay for our operational expenses. But money is going to be tight, and it's going to be fundamental for us to do anything, like any other organization, I suppose. Because the whole program is so new, Connecticut doesn't have really great examples of how these organizations are going to remain solvent and productive, and be able to employ people on a full-time basis. We have a few other states that have a few examples of how this is done, but as I mentioned, most of them are quasi-governmental, and a lot of them either share already paid staff, or they get funding directly from the government entity that they represent. So, for example, like Suffolk County, New York on Long Island gets money from the county. They get money from the state, but they also have on paper they have about a dozen employees, and they're all paid through the county already. They are already working in economic development or in some other facet of the county government, and we don't have that luxury. So we're going to be looking for all sorts of creative ways to get funding so that we can keep our mission moving. Any questions about that? Or about anything to do with the land bank?
If somebody has a property that they want to try to get the land bank to assume, like, is there an application process, or how is that being managed?
Well, right now the properties that are kind of in play are ones that are tax delinquent. So the towns are the ones that have approached us about several of those. A lot of them are like the ones you're familiar with in Thompson that have been languishing for a long time. Some of them are not tax delinquent, and those would be a little bit more problematic to get a hold of. But the ones that are tax delinquent, the idea would be that the tax liens would be handed over to the land bank would foreclose on them. And then as owners, we would be able to qualify for cleanup grants. If you remember that some of the issues like with the River Mill and 630, the town could apply only for assessment grants, but not for cleanup grants because they were still privately. And that's where the land bank would, has a lot of power because we would actually own the properties. As far as privately held properties, we're not looking to obtain properties that are privately held and are not tax delinquent. In other words, we're not looking to work with private owners, especially if they haven't taken care of their properties. On the other hand, we would be looking to partner with or work with private developers who are interested in a property that might be derelict, but they're very shy about going forward with it for obvious reasons because they don't want to assume liability for a lot of environmental issues. So those properties, if we had for example, an empty property and I'll use 630 as an example. Let's say, for example, that one, and I'm not even sure if that's tax delinquent, but if, let's say a developer were to come along and say, I want to develop it, I understand there's a remedial action plan. I don't want to go down that road. The land bank could serve as sort of an interim step where we would own the property and do a cleanup, or we would consult with the town and the developer to try to get the cleanup effected so that we can, so that then the developer feels comfortable to move forward with the project. The benefit of having a developer already lined up is obviously that if we seek funding from state or federal grants, they're much more likely to be receptive to our application if those properties are targets for development already. In other words, if they know that funding is going to be leveraged by a private developer. And so, if you think back to the BAR grant, the state was very interested in that because the River Mill had John Gumpert's interest, and that played a good role in making Thompson score very favorable for the BAR grant. And by the same token, the land bank would score higher in getting grants for properties if private developers are already showing interest.
It's really exciting. It sounds like it'll be great for our region. Do any other members have any questions or comments for Mary Ann or Wayne?
I just had one quick question. If there are 1,000 brownfield sites east of the river, how many are in Thompson?
Kira, why don't you
sorry,
take
was that
CBI just did an inventory for you.
Yeah, I didn't want to step on you guys since you're the guests. Earlier this year, Nefeli Bumpoli at UConn School of Engineering, she's in their brownfield sort of program there. She had a student compile an inventory for us, which I have, and I can pull it up just for my own reference.
I didn't want to.
And what?
I was just curious at how many.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting question anyway, right? So let me see. Thompson Brownfield inventory. That student identified 10 sites that would qualify. Most of them are ones that we know, including 929 and 630, 950, pretty much all the Riverside Drive mills. And then Delta Tool Company, Safeway Propane, Bates Auto Parts, and 327 Riverside. Those were the ones that were identified at that time. So 10 here, at least.
So one thing to keep in mind with brownfields is there is no single accepted definition of what a brownfield is, and essentially, EPA defines them as sites that would be, that where the either the presence or the perceived presence of environmental conditions are impeding their use or reuse. So they tend to be underutilized. What's important to keep in mind is that a property can very quickly become a brownfield. If, for example, a business closes and let's say it's an industrial business, while it's still operating, it's not a brownfield because it's still generating revenue and it's got employees and everything. But if a business suddenly closes and it's got environmental issues associated with it, it can very quickly go from being a productive property and a contributor to the economy and the community and to being a brownfield. And so what we could do, and these might be the easier sites to address, would be to go in and fix, clean them up before they deteriorate. Because if there's buildings involved, it doesn't take long before a vacant building becomes a target for vandalism, or it just deteriorates, very quickly because of lack of maintenance. And so our goal would be, in many cases, we think of brownfields maybe as mills, but an example of a site that could quickly become a brownfield would be like Norampac in Thompson, where it had that property, suddenly become vacant, and it had a couple of environmental issues on it. It could be a brownfield very quickly. So, I'm not picking on Norampac, it's just a site that I'm a little familiar with. So, just to give you an idea, there are many types of brownfields: a gas station, a strip mall, it'd be very many properties. And so one of the things that the land bank can do is not just tackle the worst of the worst, but also prevent sort of the downsliding of a community by some vacancies. And the quicker you act as a community, the quicker you can avoid having another real problem that just kind of drags down the whole area.
That's good to know. I wouldn't have known that.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. That's good, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably most useful to think of dereliction in a property as the qualifier, even more than environmentals in some cases, because it's the idea of safety hazard or tax delinquency. I mean, none of those things are necessarily environmental, but they still would sort of fit the bill.
Yeah.
I think we just lost Wayne. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. In my mind, this land bank has the most promise for 6:30. That's something I think as a committee we should talk about in the future, maybe.
I would agree with you there, Janet. I think it's in a great position because those environmentals have already been done, the phase 1, phase 2. You've got the information in hand, so now you're talking about the delinquency on the taxes and the abandonment of the property, which I think you could make a strong case on both of those, that there's no active work being done to clean up, make safe, market, any of that. I mean, it might be listed for sale, but it's ridiculous that property hasn't probably even been shown in months.
Yeah.
It is tax delinquent, right, Tara?
As far as I am aware, it is still tax delinquent, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. And that's in a prime location,
Right.
right on the Route
Oh,
12
yeah.
corridor in town.
Right. Yeah, that property, like I said, let's put that on the agenda and try to do some research on that. Now that the land bank is up and operational, I mean, I guess we'd have to talk with the selectmen, and I'm sure would be a lengthy process, but it's something we should consider pursuing.
I agree.
Yeah, and the land bank is in the position now, and Mary Ann, you can stop or correct me, at any point here. We would like to start reviewing properties. We're developing score sheets for, which projects are going to be the ones that are taken on. And that's both in their utility to the towns that want us to take them on, and also to whether the land bank feels like it's a good first project in terms of a high chance of success, utility to the community. You know, there's a whole series of criteria there.
Yeah, exactly. And when we do take on properties in municipalities, we would be looking to enter into a municipal agreement for those properties. So, and I mean, 630, we all know it's been there forever, languishing and getting worse and worse. And though some people have quote unquote kicked the tires, that's as far as it's gone. And there's so much potential on that site for development. And it's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. And there are so many sites like that in Eastern Connecticut. And our goal is to get them put back on as positive contributors to the tax rolls, because that's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that they just languish.
And with that property, I feel like there's a high likelihood of getting grants from the state for the actual cleanup, because they've already put a significant investment into that property.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So that's something that we'll be investigating, and we had been introducing the land bank to municipalities before COVID hit. And now that it's starting to quote unquote go back to the new normal, we want to again visit municipalities and COGS and real chambers of commerce and whatnot to introduce the land bank and explain what we do and how we can help them. So that's also on our agenda.
Marianne, am I correct that we have a meeting next Tuesday morning?
Yep, 9 o'clock in Killingly.
I don't know if anybody, you know, would it be helpful or interesting from your perspective, Madam President, if somebody from MSRAC could come and talk about the potential for the 630 site as a target project?
It would be, but this is a special meeting, Tira, and
is it?
Yeah, because it wasn't a scheduled meeting. This is a special meeting, so maybe at a regular board of directors meeting that would be appropriate. But with a special meeting, I really don't want to rock that boat. And I mean,
okay,
granted,
no, I just didn't have it. I didn't have it written down that way, so I'm
Yeah.
looking in here for the next regular.
Yeah. Well, it was supposed to be the 23rd of this month, but because of the 15th, we canceled that meeting. So the next one, I believe, if I recall, is November.
So that could theoretically time out well, Janet, if members of MSRAC wanted to talk to the Board of Selectmen in the interim. Where is that November meeting? Do you know the date of the November meeting off the top of your head, Marianne?
I want to say it's the third Thursday, Tara.
Which would be Thursday the 19th. Okay.
That sounds right.
I'm writing
So-
it down in my book.
I think that's a great idea to start a dialogue with the selectmen. I guess I need a little bit more, like, step by step, how is it done? Does the town doesn't foreclose? Is that, Wayne said something like that the town gives the
Exactly.
delinquent taxes?
What the land bank would do is come in, and if the town was in agreement, turn the tax lien over or sell it to the land bank for $1, and then the land bank would foreclose on that tax lien, and it would be able to, as Wayne said, apply for cleanup grants and get the property cleaned up and flip it, basically.
Okay. I'm not familiar with those kind of legal transactions, but maybe the Board of Selectmen are.
And if you
Ken,
want
do you have
to,
any insight there?
offline, we can talk more about it if you'd
Okay,
like.
yeah, that sounds good. This
Okay,
was, and especially since the meeting is until November, we have a little bit of time to really go over it.
yep.
And I mean, I think the MSRAC members probably need to vote and see if we want to pursue this. So maybe in October, we can have that on the MSRAC agenda and see if the members want to go forward with that. Does that sound good, members?
Sounds good.
Sure.
Sounds real good.
I'm not a member, but it sounds nice and orderly to me, Janet.
Okay. And in the meantime, I'll try to offline get some more information about procedural, how to proceed.
Mm-hmm. Very good.
Okay.
Do you
Well,
guys
thank
have
you.
anything else for Mary Ann?
Good to hear you, Mary Ann.
I miss you guys.
We
Well,
miss you
we miss
too.
Well, hopefully we'll be working together again soon.
Yes, thank you very much for all this great information, and maybe Thompson can put the first project through the land bank.
That would be so cool.
That would be great. That would be great.
Okay, then, like you said, thanks again. I guess as we're all set with this
And-
item on the agenda.
Wayne did want me to apologize to you for dropping the call, and he appreciates you adding us to the agenda as well.
No problem. Thank him for participating.
Yeah, I will.
Please.
You guys take care.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Mary.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, then we'll continue on our agenda with committee business, the original number A, Lot SIP Route 12 Sidewalk Project. Specifically, I added a couple of little bullet points there to update the committee. If you recall at the last meeting, there was brought up that there might be a right-of-way issue in front of the convenience store and the cemetery. That has since been resolved. I looked into it a little bit further and asked them to have their surveyors review the state right-of-way maps, and they did, and now it has been determined that the whole sidewalk is in the state right-of-way, so that we don't need any kind of easements.
Oh, good.
Oh, that's
So that was very good. The crosswalk at Blaine Road kind of went back and forth. Whose plan should this be shown on? The Blaine Road consultant or the Freeman, the sidewalk consultant? And after I thought about that for a while, I realized that, there's a reasonable amount of cost for putting in that, the special pavement markings and the signs. And that's something that's typically a highway department would not do. And since they would be the contractors on Blaine Road, it seemed that it might be more appropriate for Freeman to put it in their contract because, they're already specifying all these crosswalks and such. And their only objection had been that they didn't survey the other side of Route 12. So basically we asked Provost and Rivera, who did survey the Blaine Road side, to forward their CAD survey information to Freeman so that, hopefully with, minimal effort, Freeman can add that crosswalk into their contract, and that way the improvements will be paid for under the lot SIP grant, and the highway department won't have to try to put in fancy sidewalks, fancy crosswalks.
That sounds good.
Anybody have any questions on those two items?
Not on those two.
We, additionally, with this project, we asked Freeman to look at other alternates for the parking near Ross and Ave in front of the Main Street Grill. And just late yesterday afternoon, They forwarded 2 PDFs, which I forwarded to you guys only like a half an hour ago, but Tira said she could share those on
Yep.
her screen.
Bear with me here.
So I didn't like either one of them. I think they're both problematic. I mean, trying to parallel park on a curve or back into a space on a curve. I mean, if you have people coming from the north to the south, they're going to want to just pull in there. And then when they leave, they're backing into oncoming traffic. You know, it's just a nightmare situation.
I agree. Go ahead,
I think
Steve.
the best solution is actually just pulling in. You could get 6 spaces with a handicap accessible space. I was doodling, maybe I can, when my camera comes back, I can, let's see.
Okay, so right now, on the shared screen is the parallel spaces. What does it look like? 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parallel spaces. And the other option, I kind of agree with you, Steve. They're meant to be reverse back in spaces so that, you know, that you back into them diagonally, so nobody would be backing up into the state highway. You would be always pulling out forward, but there's no stopping people from coming down from the north for pulling into them the wrong way. And that would happen all the time.
And people can't back up. People are going to be hitting each other. You know, parked cars
Yeah,
that are already there.
that's a terrible option.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hi, Steve. You're gonna show us some good ideas?
Just, I don't know, I can't see myself, so,
Well, that's because I'm screen sharing. So let me stop sharing.
okay,
So we can see you a little better now.
okay. Can you see that? I'm trying to hold it up to the camera.
Yeah, well, I can.
Yes.
On a desktop, it's nice and clear. I don't know about a phone.
Yes,
Okay.
it's very
So
clear.
it seems like you could get 6 spaces in there, and it would be much easier just to pull in on that curve. It's a gentle curve, but it's still a curve. And then you could back up and go either direction.
Yeah, but you're still backing out onto Route 12. It goes back to the original problem right from the get-go.
Well, it's,
Backing out onto Route 12.
right.
That's
But
what we're doing now.
Right,
That's exactly what
exactly.
it looks like.
that's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, and it's
And
terrible.
They're not going to
Steve-
want to give up spaces.
Steve, how
Yes.
does that compare with Freeman's original that they showed us last week? Is that,
I don't have that handy, but
I'm sure I can find it. You'll just have to bear with me as I go through my folders.
okay.
Talk amongst yourselves.
okay, well, I think we can, seems like I mean, I guess I want to hear from Joanne and Charlene, but at least it seems like the angled one doesn't seem to be favorable to Steve, Bernie, I, or Tira. What do you guys think, Joanne and Charlene, about the angled backing?
Well, my opinion on the angled is if you pull in forward and you back out, if it's at angle, then you're only forced to go north when you exit. I mean, because you won't be able to back up the car properly. It just is a nightmare, the whole backing out onto Route 12 on a curve. I don't know how you're going to fix that except putting parking in the back of the building where it should be, or on the side of the building, or just a couple of spaces in front for handicap. Charlene?
Yeah, I agree too, but then like Steve was saying, they're not going to want to give up parking, so we have to try to make something work for them. And right now, where the option is you have to back out there. So if it means taking away parking and he doesn't have any, or backing out like we're already been doing for years, then I think we have to have a plan, maybe something that Steve drew, that it's an option so that they feel like we're giving them options instead of taking everything away.
The parallel
It
parking,
should be pointed out that Freeman it did say that technically, legally, they're not giving up anything. They
Because
don't
it's-
own the space in which they are parking.
and there's parking in back.
And there is parking in back, which, you know, if people aren't using it, it's because they're not being directed to it and because they have this option in front, which is an unsafe option. Here's the original.
Yeah. So it's very similar. I
Yeah.
forgot.
Yeah, it's not that different at all, really.
Yeah.
So really what we should be doing is encouraging that parking in back, you know, and if it's offering them some signage, right, helping to subsidize it, or, you know, formally saying to them you can have overflow at the library, which isn't going to work for everybody, but that's a really short walk, you know. But there is apparently quite a bit of parking back there in that shared lot. And it's safer, and he gets more frontage options to have patio seating if he gets rid of that parking entirely.
Right.
True.
Right.
True.
Now here's a really screwy idea. That'll never fly. But what if you did something with the park area across the street?
It's been brought up, but what has been brought up is to sacrifice that green space for parking.
Yeah.
I would be very opposed to that for several reasons. You know, I don't think we should be in the business of taking away park space to put in asphalt. Now, if he wanted to propose some kind of seating option there, I would be more amenable to that, but that's not a very good safety situation for his
not
servers.
At all. Yeah.
Not at all.
I going back to last meeting when, you know, we were discussing that this should be gone over with the owner of that restaurant, so they can't be surprised by this. Perhaps we should take, well, we all agree the diagonal one is no good. Perhaps we should take the parallel parking and the pull straight in options and discuss those with the restaurant owner and ask Freeman to discuss those with DOT, because they're going to have the final approval. It's literally parking on their property.
It's true.
So
Boy, it sure would be nice if DOT says that parking's got to go. That's the end of the whole issue.
Yeah.
I mean, parallel.
And indeed they might, because
Yeah.
that is really, it's a really bad parking situation.
That's right.
That's why I think in general, I don't like parallel parking. I'm not good at it since I live in the country, but out here, I think it might be the safest because people aren't straight backing up.
How about if you turned it into a bus stop? I'm sort of serious.
I wouldn't mind that at all, but there is no, I mean, NECOG would have to add it as a stop, but I don't think it would get a lot of traffic. Because it's in between the two where they do have drop-offs, which is the town hall and the library.
Right.
I also wondered about parking where, on this plan where it says ornamental trees, so parking from the backside of the driveway, you could possibly get 3 or 4 spaces in there, but I went out to look at it and there's a grade issue, so those I don't think would work that
You
way.
mean coming off of Rawson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's clever.
So here's a kooky idea. What if we propose to him that instead of that parking, it be bike racks and
Outdoor
either outdoor seating, but if he's super insistent on, you know, trying to retain parking, really small spaces just for motorcycles, which have a different kind of parking mechanism, right?
Yeah.
Steve, what was the grade issue if you came off of their back driveway? I haven't looked at it that closely.
Janet, I think it goes up. So where it says ornamental trees, it's starts increasing grade.
But
Pretty
there could
steep.
be, if there were spaces that came off that back driveway, that would, even though they'd be within the state right of way, they wouldn't have to back up into the state right of way. Maybe they could put some little retaining wall at the end of the parking places, in between the end of the parking places and the road.
Well, that's true. They might be able to make it work, but the way it would set up now, it would not work. But it may be worth a look at.
Yeah, mention that to Freeman. I think that's a great idea.
Okay. So we'll ask them for one more alternate
Yep.
instead of the diagonal alternate, to see if they can figure out spaces coming off that back driveway. And
Because they could still utilize that space on the state right of way, but it's coming in from the north instead of off the road.
Right.
yeah, I think that's a great idea, Steve.
I also think it would be a great, with some, it would obviously need some barriers, but outdoor dining on that corner right across from the park would be a nice thing.
Yep. Yep.
And maybe some bike and
Okay.
motorcycle spaces too. That's a good idea.
I think talking to DOT before going to the restaurant owner is probably a good idea, because you don't want to make suggestions that just get turned down by DOT.
Yeah, that you can't follow through on.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah, that is a good idea. So those are a couple good ideas. Steve, can you scan in your nice
Well,
color
it's-
drawing or
No,
sometime?
that
It's basically this scheme that's up on,
Okay.
on the screen. I
It's just
didn't-
a
I had-
difference of one space, right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No, same number, but
Okay.
they just had the striping for the accessible space on the driver's
Okay.
side. So,
Yeah, but that's not what we're talking about, Steve's idea. We're talking about Steve's idea coming off of Rawson Ave.
Yeah,
That's the one that hasn't been drawn up
okay.
yet. That's a fresh idea. Correct?
okay, yes, let's,
so I could sketch that real quick and send it to you, Tara.
okay.
All right, good.
All right, that sounds good. You guys have some great ideas.
Brain still functions a little.
Okay, so let's move
Sometimes.
on. I do want to let you guys know that I have to sign off by 10:30, but I think we're going pretty well on our agenda now. So we're up to committee business 5B, Blaine Road intersection design update. I believe Tira, the design is approved by DOT. So theoretically, the town can just pull an encroachment permit and start construction, but Rich is now, as Tira mentioned, Rich's schedule is now full for the fall because, he has to plan things out in advance. So Tira just let us know that he'll do that project first thing in the spring.
That is what he has said to me.
Tara, could you ask him if maybe he could just squeeze in putting some lines down to see what happens and maybe begin to give people the idea of what's going to happen?
I can ask him.
Yeah, I think it might not be a bad idea just to, it's kind of a lead into 6 months down the road.
Yeah.
Coming
I'll certainly
soon.
ask him, Bernie.
Okay? I mean, is it a good idea? Am I right? Is it a good idea to do that?
Well, it's not
I
that
like it.
different from tactical urbanism, right? When citizens just go out and paint crosswalks where they want them to be.
Practical urban.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm a big
DOT
fan of
would-
tactical urbanism, actually.
I'm not sure DOT would go for that, Bernie. because it's
Okay.
like a partially complete thing without signage.
Yeah,
That's a
true.
and Curbs.
True, good point. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Tira can ask Rich, see what he says.
I think
I will
coming-
surely do that.
Yeah, I think he's gonna kind of mirror what you just said, Janet. We'll see. Because he's got a background with them, so.
Right. Okay, anybody have any further comments on Blaine Road intersection? Then we can move on to 5C, John Gumpert liaison. Anybody have any updates on that? I guess probably that would be you, Tara. Have you heard anything?
Well, I don't generally hear anything unless Amy has mentioned anything. But in terms of the other piece attached to that, the rehabilitation area zone, and this ties into item E as well, because the new book of regulations was approved by P&Z. The plan was to match the rehabilitation zone for the tax assessment relief to what was approved for the downtown Mill Rehabilitation District. So that stuff has all been sort of done, the approval on the P&Z side. Ken, maybe you can tell me, the Board of Selectmen just approved to adopt that resolution, right? So now it's just whatever the legal end point is that right?
I know Ken's phone has a line through it, so I thought that he has dropped off.
Well,
a
he's
while
muted.
back.
Muted, yeah.
Yeah, that just means he's muted.
Oh, okay.
He can unmute himself. I just tried to, and it's telling me ask to unmute, so I think he's got to do it himself. Which is *6 on your phone. Ken. Well, we'll let him get caught up and he can just come in and update us if that's the case. So as far as I know, all of those pieces are now in place. Okay, he's unmuted. Go ahead, Ken.
The Board of Selectmen approved it, and it was, we did it contingent on whatever the P&Z had in their outline.
Right, so ours has been approved. The official, the effective date is set for the 15th of September, barring any, challenge to the book, which it does not appear that one has been mounted. I haven't heard any rumblings that there will be one, so we should be in the clear after the 15th for both of those items.
Great. Any other word, Ken, on John Gumpert? Has any correspondence in?
I have not heard anything. I do not know if Amy has spoken with him or not. She hasn't relayed anything to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Janet, is this going to be an ongoing item on our agenda so that we don't overlook it?
The John Gumpert liaison?
Yes.
Yes, that has been on our agenda. Yes, that's always going to be on the agenda.
Okay, terrific.
So item D, bar grant wayfinding project status.
Yeah, I've been back and forth with Kelsey a couple of times. She's preparing the end piece from CIHA/CME's commitment, which is the final report with the design recommendations. She's got some of that drafted out, which I've seen. She doesn't have the design stuff plopped in yet. And a part of that is cost estimates for fabrication for the varying options. She's waiting for, as well, the marketing company that branding and EDC retained, Sullivan and Lashane, to turn around an approved logo design that she can add into her design of the physical signs. I expect that before the end of the month, both because I'm pretty sure that's when the contract was set anyway, and also because Rich had actually forwarded that community connectivity grant call for applications. Now, Rich had forwarded it to me because he thought it might pay for some sidewalks. For all practical purposes, for us, it would not. But it does specifically mention in the guidelines that wayfinding for pedestrian and cycling connectivity is a grantable item. So my plan is, once I have the final product from Kelsey and John, is to then convert that into an application for some fabrication through the Community Connectivity Program, which I think probably has a reasonable chance of being funded. We've got really good backing material for it, including community support surveys that were done, under the wayfinding contract. So, fingers crossed, we'll actually have some signs that come out of this, and not just a report about making some signs.
Excuse me. That would be great. Anybody have any questions for Tara? Okay, then I guess we briefly covered this, adoption of the new zoning regulations. So that did I hear you correctly? There haven't been any appeals, so the new regulations and map will go into effect on September 15th?
Unless an 11th hour appeal is mounted, then yes, I believe that is the case. I'm going to get in contact with Rich Roberts on the 15th and say, are we good to go now? And as long as his answer to me is yes, then that is your official book of new regulations. They are available. The regs and the revised map are online on the P&Z page for review. And yeah, 2.5 years of work that I've done on it personally, more than that for some members like Charlene and Joe Perotti, and that's actually something that got done.
Yippee.
Yep. Yeah, I have to congratulate, the P&Z Commission. I mean, I know that, and the staff for sure. I mean, people can disagree with the substance of what's in it, but I don't see how anybody can disagree that the public didn't have ample time to comment on it. I feel like everybody, the staff and the commission, went above board to invite people to contribute comments, to hold workshop meetings. And I've never seen so much effort to enlist public comment.
Yeah,
We tried.
I've also repeatedly said that having done this myself with other regulations, I'm well aware how much work it is, and given the number of years that went into this, it's far beyond anything that I ever was involved in with wetlands and regulations. So the effort is certainly appreciated.
Absolutely.
Hey, they were all props to the commission. I mean, they really did the work. I mean, they gave up at least weekly in this calendar year since the final draft was available for like 3 or 4 months. And that's on top of the, 2 years ahead of that, behind that, to actually go through the draft originally that NECOG wrote, and then when I tore it apart and put it back together with help from John Guskowski and Carolyn and Cindy into something that they could really comment on and know where it came from. And it was good. And, not everything was unanimous for everybody, but I actually think that's a good thing, because that means that people were thinking about it and had reasons that they were trying to support one argument or another. And, it was all above board and everybody was fair. One person, on the commission didn't dominate all of the discussion. Everybody had a piece of it. That's how it's supposed to work. So they really do deserve quite a bit of praise as a group, I think.
Yep. I agree. Okay, I guess then we've already completed, at least one item under other committee business, which was the Eastern Connecticut Land Bank. Does anybody have any other Any other committee business?
Yeah, well, actually, I want to go back to the the restaurant parking for just one more brief comment that I thought of. If he's going to do, just so people are aware, if he's going to do outdoor seating that is on the state land, he's going to have to lease that from the state. The fence at the schoolhouse is, I didn't want it down the middle of the yard, the front yard, where the boundary, the state right of way actually goes about 20 feet back into the front yard of the schoolhouse. And I didn't want to put a fence. I thought it would look stupid. So it took me a couple years to get a lease in place with the state of Connecticut. And I paid for the right to have the fence on their land. And I think that he will probably run into the same thing. So as these discussions go forward, I just think that, that needs to be kept as one of the issues that has to be dealt with.
Good point. I know that that Riverside Pizza and Miniature Golf has the same situation. They
That's
have
correct.
they have a lot of leased parking from the state.
Yeah, and the course, the
Yep.
mini golf course. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I've never known. I think that when he took that over took over the golf course from from Hugo, who owned the Mexican restaurant. Hugo, to my knowledge, wasn't doing anything with the state, and I think he wasn't there long enough for that to be, issue to come up. But he and his family told me at one point that no, we don't know what you're talking about. We don't pay the state anything. So I've often wondered if the Riverside Pizza was called to the carpet on that by the state. I have no idea.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. We'll have to make sure Freeman considers that or consults
Yeah.
with the state.
Yeah.
I do have one thing, Janet, and it's just a brief one. And I was supposed to have a bid opened for the repair of the foundation at the last Board of Selectmen's meeting. It was tabled until this next one. Long story short, one of the three selectmen objected to not having heard of the project over at 65 Main. So essentially, I'm looking for people to dial into the Board of Selectmen's meeting on Tuesday, essentially to show support for the rehab project that I've been working on for the last year and a half over there. I'm sure that I'm going to have to do a somewhat long form presentation for the three of them to reiterate what I have planned over there. But I think it is important to show that it's not just me sitting in my office scribbling away, that there are people who have been aware of it, who are interested in it, who have put some effort into, thinking about how it's going to work going forward. I've got those not-for-profit partners from that grant that I wrote. Steve's done some drawings. We put the community garden there on purpose to sort of bring the property back into the public eye and in use. So I'm going to be in the position of defending this project again, whether or not they open the bid. I have no idea what they're planning on doing there, but I would appreciate it if we could have a MSRAC presence there. I do expect the folks from branding to be there, and I'm going to ask the EDC members to do so as well, and the Historical Society.
This is not going to require a whole lot of money from the town, right?
It should not involve much. Initially, of course, I'd wanted it to involve none, and all be grant
Right.
funding. But EDC did vote to put $10,000 aside into this year, possibly as match funds for grants. But what we decided in a couple of meetings was that since the foundation needs to be stabilized before anything can happen to that building, and that was about the level, about the cost that I got a back of the envelope estimate before from Jason LaValle that we would put that money this year into the rehab of the foundation to keep the building from degrading any further.
Well,
And
that
then
has-
from
that-
there,
Right, but that has nothing to do, I mean, that's got to be done. That's town property. It needs to be maintained. So, you know, it can be ignored and the building can fall down, or it can be dealt with without really saying, well, it's got to be dealt with because what do we want to do with the property?
yeah, I mean, regardless, you're correct. Regardless, the building has to be stabilized. The rest of the program, as I have sketched it out, I'm trying to pursue entirely with grant funds and in kind. I mean, I've got, you know, just for the next step, which is a planning step, I had written that grant for USDA NEFA asking for $15,000 to hire a permaculture consultant. That was a match program. So I have $17,000 in in-kind match from 6 non-for-profits plus myself to plan the various phases of the project, the conversion to the small business center, the development of the adjacent acreage into the permaculture park. Now, we were turned down from the grant just in the last couple of weeks, but all of those not-for-profit partners are committed to going forward with the planning process starting this December. So, you know, nothing happens if you don't move it forward. I will keep looking for sources of income to rehab the building. That is actually the most challenging piece because it's not a super grantable piece of construction. It doesn't qualify for any historical grants because the windows have all been replaced with vinyl already. It doesn't have specific historic interest outside the community. But I do think it's achievable. And even if I'm dribbing and drabbing it, you know, a foundation this year, the roof next year, which maybe can be done by Historic Society volunteers. The siding's going to have to be done by a professional because it's lead. So I'm going to, you know, that's going to need to be paid for. But each of those component parts is chump change in the scheme of things. If EDC will keep supporting it, providing the small funds to move the small component pieces forward so that I can either use that as grant matching or just get it into a condition where it becomes, you know, where I can find maybe a benefactor if the economy improves. You know, there's no reason not to proceed with what we can do in the short term.
Right.
So anyway,
sounds-
mark your calendars for the 15th at 7, please, if you can.
Okay. All right, then I guess we can move on to item 6, member comments. Any members want to bring something up that we haven't discussed?
Just, no additional comment. That'll be a Zoom meeting on the Main Street building.
Yeah, well, it's a regular Board of Selectmen's meeting, so I'm going to make sure Marie has it on the agenda as an item. But yes, they're all Zooms right now.
Right, so I can find that on the website.
Yep.
The town website. Okay.
Anybody have anything else? Any other questions, comments before we adjourn? All right, then I guess we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Next
Everybody
you.
have a nice weekend. Have a nice weekend, everybody.
Steve, I'll see you at 3.
Okay, see you then.
All right.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.